Hello, everyone. Diana Rankin here. So good to see all of you today. And some of you, I'm glad you can join us live. Others that view this later, thank you for doing so. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for the comments. Today, we're going to answer a reader's questions, and it gets rather involved, shall I say. So if you have questions, I ask that you choose those questions of interest to our whole audience. If you have personal questions, let's get a session for you set up, and how to do that is right below. Just give me a call or email me or whatever works for you, but all the information is just below us here. So we're going to get right to this very quickly, but I do want to remind you, we also get a message from Phillip for one of my books, The Master's Book of Answers by Phillip. And this is just an oracle book where we have different wisdoms on each page. And so we just will open to any page and get your soul message. But first, let's take a look at these questions today. It's really the story of creation is what we're going to end up getting here. But the questions are three questions. The first one is, are there souls who consistently choose a steep learning curve? If so, why? The second question is, are we headed to the same place in the end? And the third question is there an end? So Phillip goes through all of those questions, but as you've learned, those of you who come and listen every week, as you've learned, Phillip gets into a bit more detail, and he starts back at the beginning. So here we go. Here's Phillip's response that will answer all three of those questions. To understand the answers to these questions, we must begin at the beginning, or near there, not the end, although we will explain that as well. Now, I got to stop here and I got to tell you a short story. Last night, around 2 o'clock, usually Phillip wakes me up closer to 4 in the morning or 4:30, or even sometimes around 3. But this was 2 o'clock, and I woke up and I knew that Phillip was giving me the information that I'm going to read here. And that particular information, if I were giving a workshop, I wouldn't read it. I would actually have you, the participants of the workshop, act it out. And I would just explain to you how we're going to act it out. You'll understand as I read this. But for the video, I'm going to just read it to you because that's just easier for me. But imagine, it's important that when you listen to this, that you use your imagination. That's going to be a very important part of this. So here we go. Imagine a drop of water. We shall call this the oneness, the all that is. Imagine that nothing exists outside this drop of water. This is all there is. As you stare at the drop of water, you notice different colors, blue, yellow, red, and so on. As you continue to stare at this drop of water, you realize you are no longer outside the drop of water, but instead you are part of the water drop. You too are part of the oneness. As you come to this realization, you also realize that this is not water, but air. It is the breath, and you are that breath. As you take this into your awareness, you feel and hear a heartbeat, and you are the heartbeat. You look around, not as you look with human eyes, but as you look with the spirit or soul's knowing. As you look around you, you see a clarity in the air itself, and you are the air. You are the oneness forever. Then you notice the colors, the ones you noticed when you thought you were outside the drop of water looking in. The colors you saw before, you knew you were the breath, the heartbeat, the eyes, the ears, the very air of all. You are the oneness. In the colors, there are forms. So we went from looking at this drop of water and seeing color and not realizing that this drop of water is everything. And if it's everything, we're not looking at it from the outside. We are actually inside this drop of water. Because remember, the drop of water is everything. So in the colors, there are forms. The colors merge and blend together and form more colors. And these colors create new forms. You are drawn to when the blue and yellow came together in a place of green. As you move toward the green, you become aware of other heartbeats within your heartbeat of the oneness and other breaths within the one breath. You experience only love, a perfection of oneness. Your awareness expands and you become aware of voices within the oneness that you are, and yet each voice is distinct. You listen to the voices as they tell of a world in green, a planet inhabited by many creatures, including those they call human. You are captivated by their stories. You want to go to this place called Earth. You want to experience their stories. You want to create your own stories. Another voice vibrates to you within the oneness. You learn from this other voice vibrating to you that you must first learn about Earth before you are safe to leave oneness and enter Earth. So you listen to the voice, you go to school, you listen to the masters, and you prepare to enter the third dimension of Earth. You gather together those who are your soul family. You make soul contracts. Who is to help you from spirit world? Oh, that's different from oneness. Who is to help you from spirit world? Who is to help from third dimension? And who will help from oneness? You learn who will help you heal, who will teach you, who will break your heart open. You create your story. You create the story you want to experience. Most will enter Earth through the first dimension to become aware of the atmosphere before moving through the second and into the third dimension. In this process, that may take eons. You will forget that which you were told while in oneness. You will forget that nothing is outside of oneness. You will forget that you are the breath and the heartbeat of oneness. In the story you have created for life on Earth in the third dimension, you experience fatigue, happiness, grief, bliss, all of the ups and downs of human life. You create death where you can continue the story without the body. There, in spirit world, you can stay as long as you choose. The same is true of the human world, but in less a degree because of the body. Now, let us divert for a moment or two to address the question of why a soul would constantly choose a steep learning curve. Well, there are two main categories. There are the new souls and the quite old souls, or this is what we shall call them. Now, the new soul may, in their ignorance, create a story of war, hunger, heartbreak, or a myriad of subplots within the larger story that humans would deem as bad or difficult, or call a steep learning curve. While still aware of their oneness, the soul did not realize how difficult a story they were creating. Do the characters of a novel understand the perils of their story? But the writer writes the novel, you say. No. Every writer will tell you it is the characters who write the story. The writer is just the instrument of telling the character's story. And so the new soul will live out the story through life and death, life and death, life and death, until they begin to evolve and change their story life by life. The other category, remember we said there were two, is the old soul. This is the being who wishes to help elevate the suffering of those in Earth's dimension. These are the masters and masters in training. These are those masters you call Jesus, Kuan Yin, the Buddha, and so many others. They are also those you call Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and many others. There are millions of souls whose names you haven't heard of, who take on the suffering to heal the pain for all beings. These are the old souls. And there are many of you out there, by the way. Now, at any time, any soul may choose to remember they are oneness. To comprehend this is one thing. To immerse and become oneness again is not necessarily easy. So we can comprehend that we are oneness, but to actually emerge again is not as easy because we take it in at a different level. Understanding something intellectually is very different than becoming that thing. Humans are caught in their story, that of their own creation, and so they will be in body and in spirit world, alternatively, until the story is complete. Once the story is complete, once the soul returns to oneness, you may rest for only a while. Why, you ask? Why would you not stay in oneness where there is only bliss? Well, it's that color red over there. Oh, and look what happens when it blends with blue. Oh, it looks purple. I wonder what beings in that world are like. What story could I experience as a being in the purple world? Ah, the stories and the colors are endless. And that, my friend, is the answer to the questions. Are there souls who constantly choose a steep learning curve? If so, why? Are we headed to the same place in the end? And is there an end? And I think we just learned, no, there's no end unless we choose it. Hello, Annika. She says, happy Friday, Diana and Phillip. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get a message, shall we? So good to see you always in the pumpkins on this day. So here's our message. We just open to any page, and that's where I want to open. I'm hearing left. So if you heard left, our intuition's in sync. If you heard right, that's a message you need to pay attention to, because that's a message for you. So on the left, it says, begin by knowing that you know. Begin by knowing that you know. And that does go right along with our story, doesn't it? Or with what Phillip told us about basically the creation story. Know that you are the breath. You are the heartbeat. You are the oneness. We all are. We all are. So, begin by knowing that you know. If you heard right, you do not stop a war by participating in it. You do not stop a war by participating in it. And by that, here in the U.S., we're at war with one another, with each other, our oneness partner, so to speak. And we forget that we are all one. We forget that. And in the human expression, that oneness is so deeply buried in our spirit that we express as humans. And as humans, we are different. We think differently. We act differently. We feel differently. We experience differently. Our oneness is of a deeper level. But even though we think differently and we feel differently, we can still respect one another. Even if we happen to think you're wrong, let's respect that that's what you believe. I don't have to believe what you believe. So I remind you, you do not stop a war by participating in it. But remember, for all of us, begin by knowing that you know. My friends, the bottom line is we are all love. That's what the oneness is. It's pure love. And the more that we remember that, the less suffering we experience in our life. And as we experience less suffering and more love, we share that with the world. And we build this path, we create this path that others have gone before us to create a path for us that we then follow. So what color we're living here is green. This is the green planet. It seems that Phillip is telling us. So whether we're working from spirit world, or we're working from oneness, or we're working from our human selves, let us work with love. Hello, Joshua. And Joshua says, oneness with the animal kingdom, alligator mind, beast marking and palmistry found on every primate. How interesting. I did not know that. But yes, oneness includes the animals. Absolutely. And that goes back to what Phillip was saying earlier about we may come in as a one-dimensional being or two-dimensional being, and then we get into the third dimension. Four-legged most animals that we're familiar with are in the four-legged or in the third dimension world, but there are certainly those like an amoeba. Amoeba would probably be in the one dimension world, and so we may experience that one dimension world before we move into the third. But bottom line, yes, Joshua, oneness, whether it's a creature or a human creature, we are all one, and it's all about love. Enjoy the stories that you're creating for yourself, whether here or in spirit world or back in the human life, the human body. Life continues as long as you keep your story going. Thank you, my friends, for being with me today. Thank you for all the love that you send to us. Thank you, Annika and Joshua, for being with us live. We really appreciate that. And thank you for accepting this love I send to you and the love that you send to me. And Joshua says, human, no beast marking or palmistry that isn't like a primate. I believe that we're all the same, aren't we? We're all that breath of oneness. We're all that heartbeat of oneness. Until we meet again, my friends. By the way, if you haven't seen the November predictions, they are out. And so I'll let you go watch those. Thank you. I'll see you next week. I love you.